Hello, and thank you very much for tuning in to BIP Chat. And my goal and my pressure is to keep you really engaged in this, listening to this for the next 30 minutes. And we're very selective about the people that we bring into the podcast. And what we are very, very choosy about is that we are very certain that by the time you get to the end of listening to this, it will have had some impact on you, because there's a multiple of things you could listen to. So that is my pressure. I really think I'm going to be able to deliver it. So it's Penny Power here, Penny and Thomas Power, you may know us as, and we've been certainly working in the online world since 1998 when we created the first social network for business owners. And what we learned there was very critical to us, and that is that whilst we all chase down our clients, and that's very important, one of the most critical ingredients in all of our business is what suppliers we work with. And so 3 years ago, Thomas and I decided, let's create a community of amazing experts and let's cut out some of the time wasting that happens for people when they're wanting to look for good people that can have an impact on their business. And as a result of that, we've got 100 experts. We're just under it at the moment, 100 experts covering a multitude of diverse expertise, all that's going to impact, all the things that are going to impact a business and their growth. And so we bring BIP Chat to you so that you can get exposed to another amazing supplier that can have an impact. So I'm going to be introducing you to Baiju Solanki in a minute, somebody we have known for well over 15 years and have experienced firsthand, but not only that, have experienced hearing the impact that he has on other people. And we're going to be talking about basically high performance and how do you get better performance out of yourself and your teams. So I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But first of all, business is personal is what we're talking about here. So BIP stands for business is personal. It's the juxtaposition of someone saying to you, or said to me, Penny, it's not personal, it's just business. That was the most gut-wrenching experience for me, actually. And it was a real pivotal turn in my life, not only because the person that said it to me was a new investor in a business that I'd started, and I ended up going into hell through that whole period with that investor. So I really want to get across the philosophy that business is personal and we're allowed to make it personal. Emotional intelligence in organizations is a very important part of an organization's assets. And I think we all know that it's one of the growth areas, particularly in AI world now. If we don't have emotional intelligence embedded into ourselves and give ourselves permission for that, we're really going to be in trouble as well as within our organization. So talking about that, what is more personal than making sure that we introduce you to suppliers, not only that have the right expertise, but also have the values, and the values that we seek in people, apart from the skills and the expertise they have, is that they're open, very transparent, very honest, and have the values of kindness. And I think that is a layer on top of being a supplier that's really critical, because it means that they really do want to have impact, because they have that inner voice that says, apart from the money, apart from the transaction that I need, I really want to be kind to this person, listen to them, understand them, have an impact. So enjoy listening to this interview now with Baiju, which I'm really excited about. So Baiju runs on Spirit Global. And you can see, if you're watching this rather than listening to it, the banners behind it, all about change your game. And Baiju, you've dedicated your life being a really top speaker and running training and coaching for organizations and the impact you have. Tell me a little bit more about that. What's been your journey to really realize that this is what you are brilliant at?
Thank you, Penny, for that introduction. And just want to say, yes, we have known each other for close on 15, 16 years. You were the first, the Academy was the first network I sort of embarked upon when I started my small business journey at the age of 37. So I'm not a traditional entrepreneur. My first an academic by birth, by trade, going to university, and I studied psychology, and I was a psychology lecturer for 4 or 5 years. And I studied sports psychology, did a master's in sports psychology. But when I did it, it was very, very new in the world. So even the elite sports people saw it as a bit of a pseudoscience, and not. So it was very risky. And then I ended up in corporate sales, and I ended up being there for 9 years. So I've done the academic world, I've done the corporate world, and now doing the sort of entrepreneurial world. And I haven't looked back since I left my job and started my own business. And as a psychologist, the premise of psychology is the study of human behavior. But psychology in itself is really just about proving or disproving hypotheses. But so how can you apply that into the real world? We want as human beings to be the best versions of ourselves. So if we don't study human behavior for the purpose of improving ourselves, what's the point? And a lot of people think of psychology in the psychiatry world, whereby psychology is only relevant to understand abnormalities or help mental illness, as opposed to if someone's okay or nothing so bad, how can psychology help? Where psychology sometimes comes into the sort of the medical field. So my whole thing is actually, just because you're okay doesn't mean you shouldn't explore the psychology of humans, because there's clues there about how you can be better. And we fall into the trap when we grow up into our formative years. Then you go into the workplace and school, and then we settle into a world where either we're a business person or we're an employee or we become a parent. We create an identity, and then we have a narrative. And then why does mental illness comes? Because the biggest surprise in the Western world is that we're surprised with change. We any change, whether it's relationships or business or economy, we act as if like that's never happened before, and we don't cope with that. So what is performance is understanding what's in the way of performance, and that's part of my sort of work that I do. So that's sort of brief intro.
I really love that, actually, because I think you're right. I never, until 2018, considered going to see a psychologist, for example. It wasn't until I thought, actually, I'm really burnt out and creating lots of limiting beliefs and things. And what a mistake to wait till then to understand how my mind worked and how I was limiting myself. But what I'm also learning, which is really interesting, is I was talking to a burnout coach the other day, because I've got 3 clients that are sort of a bit in that stage, and I wanted to see if I could find an expert in burnout. And she was saying that so many people, when they burn out, they limit, and this must happen in corporates all the time, they limit themselves for fear of burnout again. It's like they've broken their legs, so they're frightened of running again. So I think you're so right. If we don't really understand ourselves, how can we ever perform at our best? So, and I'm hoping anybody listening to this will realize this is a subject relevant to everyone. I mean, maybe if I was interviewing an SEO expert, you might say, well, I don't think I really want to learn about that. But for goodness sake, this is relevant to us all. So now the sort of people that you love working with, you've got a diverse, because you go into corporates, and I think you've had a long career working in the corporates with this, also business owners and entrepreneurs. But the critical thing is, where are they when they think I need Baiju? What is going on that they think, right, I've got to bring him in?
Why do we do anything? Right? We want to do, if you ask, the hardest question people can't answer is, what do you want? And when you dig a little bit, the surface answer is, well, financial freedom. I want to have financial freedom, so I can do what? Well, travel, I can buy this, I can do that. So, and then it's okay, well, what does that actually, do we know people who are mega rich and happy? Yes. Do we know people who are mega rich and unhappy? Yes. Do we know people who are broke and happy? Yes. Do we know people who are broke and not happy? Yes. So I concede, but money does buy you an element of happiness. But also, you and me know a lot of rich people that there's a point where money doesn't make the difference, right? And so I work with people who are on the surface successful, right? The outside world would look at them and think, well, you ain't got no problems. And then when you start digging deeper, they're not happy or content or satisfied or at peace, whatever it is for them. I was recently speaking at a conference where there was business owners who are running companies turning over between 5 and 30, 40, 50 million. And I do this little exercise and I talk about performance. What is performance? The formula is potential minus interference. What's in the way to reach your potential, right? So then there's 2 types of interference. There's the interference that we think is, the interference is, I haven't got enough money. I haven't got the staff. I haven't got the resources. I haven't got the talent. I haven't got the skill set. I haven't got the qualification. So if I had that, my life will be happy, right? Or I would get success. But the interference I deal with, what goes in inside. So I said, then I literally put on this sort of interactive thing. I said, what's your interference? Fear of failure, fear of losing, imposter syndrome, wanting to be liked. And all the stuff they put in there is completely within their control and their story, right?
Gosh, yeah,
So
really
then
true.
you say, then you start to break that down by having that interference. What is not available to you? And they say, I avoid the conversation. So so there's one example we had last week, Penny, right, at this conference. There's one lady, what's your interference? She goes, wanting to be liked. I said, okay, wanting to be liked, what's that preventing you doing? She goes, having this conversation with someone, because it's not a nice conversation. And I said, okay, I get that. So I asked her a simple question. I said, would you rather be liked or respected? And she went, respected. I said, okay, if you went into that conversation, even though the conversation is not a nice conversation to have because it may be bad news, and you approached it from a point of being a respected business owner, let's say we're sitting here now post-conversation. You've had the conversation to the way that you wanted it. It may not have been nice, so the person might have still been upset or this or that, whatever, but you've let go of wanting to be liked because you've done the professional thing, humanely, morally, ethically, all those parameters. Now tell me what's available. And then she went, well, we could do this. I could do that. This is open. So all of a sudden, she identified the things that would become available after dealing with the interference.
I love that.
And I talk about the domino impact, right? So when I coach and work with corporates and individuals, they usually identify 5-10 things that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Whatever they may be. Some may be within their control, some not be. And I talk about the domino impact. So I say, like, if I gave you 1,000 dominoes, and I said, right, I'm going to come back in one day, but in one day, I will give you £1 million if you just take one action to make sure every domino is being impacted. What would you spend a day doing? Oh, just arranging the dominoes. Right. What we don't do in life is arrange our dominoes. So in coaching, I say, okay, let's find out the 10 things. Now arrange them in such a way. What's the first 2 dominoes we need to focus on?
Nice.
Right. And it could be that conversation. It could be a decision you need to make. It could be doing this one thing that alleviates some of your fear, bringing that person. And then you've got to say, okay, that will create a domino impact, that the 3, 4, 5 item on your things I've got to do are naturally taken care of because you've done the first one.
Yeah, I love that. It's really interesting what you say also about like or respect. That's life, isn't it? I mean, I remember quite early on in marriage to Thomas, unfortunately, we've had a 33-year good marriage. But I said to him, sometimes I might not like you. Sometimes I might even struggle to love you. But if I ever lose your respect, if I ever stop respecting you, then I imagine it's game over. And to me, respect is just, it's such an important thing when you're going through on a journey with a relationship with anyone.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
And that's the example for this lady. For some people, it might be trust. For some people, it might be, confidence in them. Whatever it is for you is not the issue. The thing is what holds you back.
I love that.
From doing the
God,
thing.
I want a therapy session with you.
I do. But that's what I say to people, right? So get this right. Just on that joking, when people say this, it's like therapy with you. I think with therapy and counseling is there's a need to understand the cause for something. In coaching, there's not. In coaching, we just need to be aware of it, and then we're moving forward.
Yeah, no.
Right. So I'm not sitting there dealing with the childhood reasons why stuff has happened. That's what therapy and counseling does. But we can say, actually, the reason I want to be liked is because the idea of not being liked affects my validation.
Yeah.
But then you really analyze that. It's actually, no, it's just your story, because you're assuming if you have bad news to one of your employees, they won't like you.
Yeah, I know. But I think that does come because I'm a people pleaser and I always want to be liked. And I sit on a paranoid, I always say I sit on a paranoid fence all the time, because my mum was she had the ability to withdraw love from me and I wouldn't even know why.
So I want to make a distinction here. Right? I haven't met anybody that doesn't want to be liked.
Right.
Even mass murderers on one level, right?
Right.
So me to sit here and say, well, don't worry, not being liked, that's not the point. The point I'm trying to make here is that need is that overriding you taking the kind of actions that would allow you to perform at your best.
Yeah, I
If
get
it
that.
is, then there's a conversation to be had.
And it's how much you respect yourself. Because of my journey, when I'm thinking, and I'm a small business owner, I remember when we started our mastermind groups, and I got everybody to sign a contract for joining, and it was a 12-month contract, but they were allowed to pay monthly, and this is about 4 or 5 years ago. But I said, if you decide to leave on month 5, you are still liable to that contract. And I remember the first person that they weren't playing the game at all, and they decided to leave and everything. But they made me, they were basically going to stop us from making the money that we were supposed to make to run that whole mastermind. And I really went back to this respect thing in my head of, actually, do I care whether this person likes me or respects me as a business owner? And I thought, no, I want respect. And respect to me is you keep to a contract, and they paid. And so I think that I know that's not the only subject, but that's that lady who was struggling with that. It's a really interesting insight, because you said to me, that you have this sort of take people through a formula to understand what excuses they might be having in their life to stop them from performing. And is that one of the excuses, for example?
Yeah. I talk about so once we identify the interferences, and where's the interference coming from? Is it coming from an issue around your own self-validation, trust, confidence? And then in terms of the formula, we say, okay, well, we all have reasons and excuses. So I have 3 mantras in my own life that I have non-negotiable, and I tell that to my clients. I'm never late, I'm never complain, and I'll always do what I say what I do, right? And it's all about managing expectations. So then I say to people, okay, give me the reasons why certain things occur or don't occur, or what you say excuses. And the only thing more powerful than an excuse is a genuine excuse. So I destroy the genuine excuse. So someone might say to me, I can't move on this project until I hired this person. What happens to the brain and your mind is you don't even consider things you could do before that thing occurs. You don't even explore it. So, and they might say, well, we could do this, we could do that, because they're not even going there. So I love to hear the genuine excuse. So let's eliminate that. Eliminate the genuine excuse. Then what you're left with is just what's inside here stopping you doing stuff. Right?
Really good.
And then it's not about addressing everything. It's about what's the first domino, and understanding that first domino.
So when you're working with leaders that come to you, and I know I've get some amazing feedback, people that have been on your conferences, and I heard last week a lady say to you, I learned more in your speech about myself than I have in 20 years, which is, wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Incredibly rewarding. How much do you think, when you're talking about the excuses and things, how much is it that people aren't taking personal responsibility?
Oh, 1,000,000%. I say to people, right, there's 3 things that prevent people taking ultimate success: their personal leadership, their own productivity, and their own accountability. So when they're not productive, they find excuses. Sorry, ownership. When they're not ownership, they find excuses. When they're not accountable, they're blaming. And when they're not leading, they're spectating. Right? So any given point, so if my team's not performing, the first place I look is what was my communication? Right? And there's a difference between communication and being in communication. It's 2 different things. And a lot of companies and business owners are not in communication and managing expectations. One of the biggest things that came out of this when I go to conferences is accountability. People aren't accountable. They said they're going to do something and they didn't do it. And they come back with beautiful, gorgeous, sexy excuses. Internet was down. My child was ill. The bus was late. I got really busy. And that's another thing that I address, right? I don't do busy, Penny. So I'm going to ask you a question. Are you a busy person?
I've always got time. I've always
got time. Exactly. But a lot of people, they have this thing back where they say, I must say I'm busy, or I say I'm busy because it gives an indication I'm successful.
But it's so off-putting.
It's rubbish.
I always think if somebody says to me, I'm busy, in any way, I'm too busy, I think, well, I won't bother you then.
Well,
which includes I won't give you a referral.
I say 2 things. I say 2 things. I say, 1, you're not that important to be that busy. Right, number 1. And 2, tell me what you're doing when you're busy. If you're not doing whatever you're supposed to be doing for whatever it is, why are you doing it? So either if it's work, you're speaking to a colleague, you're writing an email, you're developing a report, you're producing content. So you're just doing the thing. And a lot of people, they look at their diary, 9 o'clock meeting, 10 o'clock Zoom call, 11 o'clock team meeting, 12 o'clock, write the project. So they've got all these things in the hour and they collapse the day together. Look, I've had a busy day. Well, no, this morning, to my day today, I went to the gym, came back. Between 9 and 10, I wrote some content. 10 o'clock, I had a call. 11 o'clock, I replied some emails. 12 o'clock, I did some calls. 1 o'clock with you. I've got another call at 2:30. Then I've got one at 4. If you looked at my day, busy day, no, I'm just doing what I'm doing.
No, I know, and you're working through it. You're not actually overlapping all the time. No. And I think that's about how we structure. So from a leader's point of view, so if a leader was listening and they're a leader of themselves, they might be a sole trader, or they're a leader of a business, or they're their own business, or they're a leader in an organization, and they know that something's not at its best. They're just frustrated. They've got resources, they've got their own internal resources, they've got everything, they've got just not working. Do you help them identify then where it is? Because I suppose a lot of people say we just need to send them on a sales training course, and they start layering more skills on top. But I think I'm hearing that a lot of the reasons people don't perform is not about the skills.
It's their own stuff. It's their own stuff. So first thing I do is, what are you not doing? So I look at the leader and say, okay, they're not performing. Right. Where's your follow-up? Where's your accountability? How have you set up expectations? Do they have you explained to them what success looks like? And are they on the same hymn sheet as you? Right. And the difference between a business owner or a leader and an employee is the difference between measuring inputs and outputs. So you'll get an employee measure, they want to be measured on the inputs. I've done 40 hours. I've written seven emails. I've attended all these meetings. So they talk about the things they've been doing. Whereas the entrepreneur leader, well, what's the outputs? So there's a misalignment with the accountability conversation. And then there's frustration. Well, I've worked really hard. I've made those calls. What can I do if nothing's happening? And they want, well, how many sales have you done? How many pieces of content did you have been sent out and stuff? So there's a difference there. So you're right. When I look at a leader, if their team's not performing, the first place I look is them. And they might not like to hear this, but what are the things that you are not doing that actually gives your team the opportunity to be at their best?
Yeah, very, very powerful. So you do speaking. I know you're a highly demanded speaker, and you do, deep dive into teams. So how does it work? Is it quite quick? Is it quite illuminating, quite fast, actually?
Tell you what's quick is the realization of where they need to pay attention.
Right.
That's the quick bit. Oh, yeah. Do you know what? I've been avoiding conversations.
So the light bulb's gone on.
The light bulb. And then it's about, okay, there's a process involved. And it's not about overwhelm. And then whether that's a coaching intervention, a training intervention, it could be different for different people. But we can't expect, a typical leader might be between 30 and 50 years old, right? 55 years old or 60, right? So you can't expect someone who's got 20, 30, 40 years of doing certain things in a certain way to change overnight. There's inbred behaviors, the inbred opinions about how certain things work, right? And they have a rhetoric around what performance is. And then when you start to hold a mirror up, actually, this is not working. And it's about the clean communication. It's about holding people accountable. It's about managing expectations. And it's about understanding what success looks like. My background is in sports psychology. So if you look at the distinction between sport and business, there's a massive distinction that explains why there's so much confusion in business. In sport, what success looks like is very simple. In football, more goals. In cricket, more runs or wickets. In golf, fewer shots. In tennis, sets, right? So they don't go in the change room and talk about, what should we do today, guys? Score more goals. Oh, yeah, whatever. What they talk about is the strategy and the tactics. But in business, they don't even know what success looks like. And it could be several heuristics, £30 million, X number of clients, a number of engagements on social, whatever. So once we know what success looks like, the conversation now is everything you're doing in any given moment, is it making the boat go faster? That's all. So
Yeah,
if you're you're a community organization, right? Your
yeah,
whole thing is about recruiting members of the right ilk. That means that the community grows, right? So any given moment, you have two rhetorics: one, to get the right members in,
yeah,
and to serve the current members. That's it. So any given moment, is this activity serving one of those two things? So when you're doing these chats, I'm serving the community because I'm helping this individual position, and other people are going to get educated.
yeah,
When you
absolutely.
do the lunches, you're giving people an opportunity to understand what the thing's about, to then have a conversation around whether they join or not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And sometimes there's so much noise around strategic alliances and this and that. They don't understand
I
the stuff.
know. No, I agree. Well, it's about really, like you said, I mean, I like your 4 values. Do you want to just say what they are? Because the first one is pretty critical to that.
Well, growth, excellence, simplicity, collaboration. And
Yeah,
how does that show up, right? So for me, two things people chase. No, two things people want: money and time. One of them they chase, and one
yeah,
they abuse.
yeah,
They chase money, and anything we chase, we know runs away. And we abuse time by being late for stuff,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then they say they're busy. So I have this thing around, if you focused on making sure you manage your diary and expectations by saying no more, not overstretching yourself during the day, you'll get more done. You'll upset less people. You'll accept yourself, and the pressure's less. So for me, the pressure of what I need to do during the day is off because I manage my diary in that way. But a lot
yeah,
of people try and do too much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So this thing which I really love, this what's your interference? Love that. And there's some common types. So do you always find it's the same 6 things
Same
that come up?
fear of failure, fear of losing,
Right,
wanting to be liked, imposter syndrome,
right.
what is it? Not knowing my potential. It's
Yeah,
all the same sort of stuff.
it's all
All
the
the same,
same stuff.
yeah.
And do you know what
Self-sabotage.
yours is?
Thing is, again, sometimes it's contextual and situational. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's fear of
yeah.
failure. Sometimes fear of success. Sometimes it is the fact that I used to be someone who wanted to be liked and respected, and it was
Mm,
in the same breath. And then when I let go of being wanting to be liked,
mm,
that my coaching went through the roof, because all of a sudden the way I deliver my training and coaching,
yeah.
if I couldn't deliver it, if I had the background need to be liked, because
Well, you are yourself. I mean, you have a whole story about that when you met Thomas at the
yeah,
first time, but that
yeah,
I think it's so important that people just feel they can be who they are.
yeah,
And, you know, your brand, and we witness this inside the community, is brutal honesty, that real
yeah,
tough love, you could call it. But
yeah, yeah.
um and I think that is so powerful. You're not sycophantic about things. You just, this
I
is
say
how
it
it
as
is,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is
And the thing is, and that's not come overnight, Penny. That's I had to
no,
learn that, where I might have been a bit like, held back a little bit in terms of the way because when I look at what stops people being their true best self, it's the stuff that's going on in their head.
no, no.
So my job is to eliminate that. So what's now you are your best, what is
Yeah,
available? I will go and have that conversation. I
yeah.
will start that project. I will go and raise that money.
Mm.
And the thing stopping them is not happening because of the stuff in their head.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very powerful. I love this. And I love, I mean, everything at the moment is how do we save money, but make money, and if you've got a workforce who's just not productive, don't just send them on skills training courses because
No.
you,
So layer, yeah, add a lot of my stuff is about, I said, when I go into training and coaching, I say, you're going to unlearn a lot of stuff.
yeah, yeah.
You're not, this is not coming out with more layers of training.
What an amazing gift for a company to give to their staff, because, you know, um, self-awareness is so powerful when you actually understand yourself and then choose to develop yourself from that. Do you feel most people are susceptible to self-development? Some people resist it. Do you have a
Well,
grasp of that?
so what we have to look at is, why do they resist it? They
Mm,
resist it for fear of what it could uncover,
yeah,
and what it could, and also there's a level of intellectual ignorance, meaning I know what it'll uncover, and I don't want to go there. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So why would I? Well, everybody knows how to lose weight and get more healthier, right?
Oh
But
dear.
they don't want to go through the hard work around the food and going to the gym, even though it's not, you don't need any intelligence, because there's pain of the not the immediate result, and the pain itself can't be bothered. You know, humans aren't built to thrive. We're
No,
only built to survive. What's the minimum we can do to
that's
get
really
away with
interesting.
living, right? We're lazy by nature. So that's why this stuff that we do here, the PD world, exists to pull out the stuff. That's why Tony Robbins does what he does, and we all do what we do. As a,
Isn't it?
if it was easy, we'd just do one personal development course and we're sorted.
Oh, I think that's so powerful. We're built to survive, not to thrive.
We are. You know, the caveman is all they when they
Strange.
woke up, just go and get food and get shelter.
No, I
That's
know.
all we've got to do.
What a lovely life. No, that sounds awful, doesn't it?
Well, you say that. I'll give you the example. When about 7, 8 years ago, business wasn't great. It was horrible. And I used to go, there was like 2 or 3 cafes around South End, like where I live, go to. And there's one in Tesco's, right? Nice little cafe. Went there, just did work or whatever. And I remember the one time I was walking out of Tesco. This is before the self-service tills. You get the ladies and men on the tills. And there was one lady, she was happy as Larry, right? She loved it. I was chatting to the customers. She was comment, oh, you eat, what's this like? Is this really good?
Oh,
Beep,
she's my
beep,
type of woman.
right? And I
Yeah.
looked at her and I thought, she's probably on minimum wage, right? She might be a housewife. She might be, her main breadwinner or not. I don't know. But all I do know is sometimes, and it's not being patronizing. It's saying to have ambition and always want more. There's nothing proud about that.
Oh, I know. I remember
She's
Luke.
probably happy,
Oh,
earning a thing,
absolutely.
enjoying, and to be able to do something which has that level of satisfaction
Oh, I'm
can
with you
be
on
can
that.
be quite a nice place to be.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you on that. And Luke Johnson said it. I can't remember his book. Is it Startup or something? I can't remember the guy who bought the first Pizza Express and then scaled it.
Yeah.
Said ambition is a curse. It is, but we need it. Otherwise, we're not going to evolve and innovate and everything as a society. But yeah, I mean, if we can find, went out for dinner last night. We're just for anybody not used to this background. We're in Portugal with one of our other members, looking at running a BIP retreat and doing some reconnaissance. And we're out for dinner, and we just debated for about 3 hours the subject of contentment. But it's not good for society. So we're gonna, if we all just became suddenly very content, we're in this world. So, and what I think you're doing is obviously you're helping leaders perform, help their teams perform. But what you're actually giving to the core of the business is context for everybody to be able to be more settled with who they are and
Yeah,
how they can develop themselves, which I
100%.
think is, this is so holistic in an organization, what you're doing, because it's obviously helping the leaders and all their pressures, but they're helping their workforce actually unpack, because nobody likes not to hit the targets, perform well, you're helping them to unpack it. And I absolutely love it. And yeah, so Baiju, let me just, for anybody that's listening to this rather than seeing it, if you would like to have a chat with Baiju, contact Thomas or I on LinkedIn. That's pretty easy to be able to do, and we'll introduce you with pleasure to Baiju. But you can find Baiju on LinkedIn. Baiju is spelled Baiju, and then Solanki is Solanki. Solanki. But what's your website? It's On Spirit Global, isn't it?
Or baijusolanki.com, but on Spirit Global, but also I have lots of satellite websites. I've got a scorecard, I've got my book website. So it's not like one place.
Scorecard's great. The scorecard's great.
Yeah, so the Change Your Game scorecard, it allows people. So life's a game. For me, there's 3 games that we need to conquer. The inner game, which goes in here, the game plan, the strategy we create for our lives, and the outer game, which is the consistency of actions. So the scorecard measures your strength in those 3 games.
Wow. And that's just a free thing to be able to take.
Yeah. I can send
you.
And
which website do they find that link?
ChangeYourGameScorecard.com.
ChangeYourGameScorecard.com. But again, contact Thomas or I if you would like that link.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for this time. I'm really inspired. I'm really going to think about what's my interference. I think that's really clever, but all of it, I just love it. So a real pleasure to be advocating you with absolute genuine awareness of you. And anybody that's listened to this, I hope this has had some value, maybe given you some thoughts about yourself. And you know,
Yeah,
as Baiju says, change your inner game. That's
exactly.
pretty
So
critical.
it starts from there. Penny, thank you so much for your
Thank
time and the
you.
opportunity.
Oh, it's lovely. Thank you very much.